Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I'm James McGowan.
Hi, I'm Jessica Faust.
We are literary agents who have taken our popular blog to YouTube to discuss all things publishing. And today we're chatting about the query spreadsheet. So if you are preparing to query, we feel strongly that you need to have a spreadsheet, a Google Sheet, an Excel spreadsheet, whatever, or an Airtable base, or some collection. If you're old school and you want to write it down, more power to you, but some collection.
James is not doing that.
No, some collection of the information you need to query. So we wanted to talk a little bit about why that's important, what should go on it, sort of how to figure out what does go on it and what you're going to put on it for your book.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about sort of tracking your submissions, but I don't think we've ever gotten into the nitty gritty of what that could look like.
Right. And also for someone who's new to querying, what exactly you even have to track, because querying is a big process. And if you're just starting out, you can read all of the articles, but sometimes you don't quite know what to expect until you're right in the thick of it.
Yeah, and one thing I would suggest is this is something to do and to work on as you're writing your book. In the similar way, when I take on a new client, I'm creating my spreadsheet, my editor list, before I've even offered representation. Yeah. I know when I get to that certain point of the book that I want this book, and I start creating my list at that time. And then as I'm reading any industry news, moves, new deals, constantly in the back of my head, and I'm constantly adding to that list. And so the whole time you're writing your book, you could be making that list for every time you're logged onto Twitter or reading Publishers Marketplace or anything like this. So I think it's not just I finished my book, now I'm querying and make my list. I think this is an ongoing spreadsheet.
It's less stressful that way, right? And you're less likely to miss something if you see someone that maybe you hadn't thought of that could now be a good fit. So you're helping future you out if you start the spreadsheet as soon as possible and just have it going, right? Consider it your little hub for all of your agent research.
Also, doesn't it give you like a rationalization for Twitter? I'm not just going on Twitter. I am researching agents and putting them in my spreadsheet.
Yeah, but also it also, doubles the incentive, right? Because obviously everyone wants to finish their book, but when you have the spreadsheet, it's like, okay, the next step is querying, and that's what I've made this, and I need to finish the book so I can get to that.
Yeah, I like that.
So, okay, a spreadsheet. We think it's really crucial to have a spreadsheet that is going to track who you're querying and the progress of said queries. So some things that you should have on there are, and maybe we can just talk about them briefly and then we can go into more detail.
Good idea.
Things that you should have on there are, a column for the agent's name and a separate column for the agency they work at, just to help you organize it a little better. I suggest submission guidelines, what that agent will need from you, and also their response time guidelines so that you can know when to follow up or what to expect. Is it a no response means no? Or is it a no from one at the agency means a no from all? Those are things that you should know before you query. And then you also want some section for the dates, right? The initial query, the request date, a follow-up date, and a pass or an offer date, right? Like answer. So those, I think, and a section for feedback. So those are probably your main, that's a lot. I threw it all at you right there, but those are your main columns that you're probably going to be looking at that can really help you extensively track all of the data that you're receiving on this book. Which makes this book querying a lot easier, but also if you end up querying another book, super easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think I can't think of anything else. I think you just sort of tossed feedback in, but I think that's important because if this book doesn't get picked up, knowing the kind of feedback you've gotten, which might actually, it might not tell you anything,
right? But
it'll give you, I think, some sense of connection with the agent when you go back to query a next book and get a sense of, is that the right person for this book or should I try somebody else?
Right. So we're going to talk a little bit next about what to look for and how to add agents to that spreadsheet. But what you just said is really important, right? Because if you query that first book, and if I really connected with Jessica Faust, maybe she was on my round 2 list for querying, but I just loved the way she responded to me, I might move her up to round 1. So we're data-driven people, you and I, we love all of that. But having that on a spreadsheet really helps you know the next time around, this is how I can even more customize this experience and get the most bang for my buck here. So
yeah, and this is really also based on how we as agents track things on behalf of our clients. And also it's helpful for me when querying any editor to see any feedback they've given on all my books,
Right.
just to get a sense, because it helps me give a sense of who they are in a way that them telling me might not happen.
I agree.
That makes sense. 'Cause
Yeah.
sometimes you learn that this editor and I, or this agent and I, don't see characterization in the same way. Like they don't like any of the characters on any of the books I do. I like
Right.
the characters. We're probably not a good fit.
Yeah, it's a good way to have that really overarching bird eye view of really the way you've connected in the past.
Mhm.
So how do you add agents to that list? How do you even decide? There are
This is the
hundreds of agents.
big
right?
thing that everybody wants to know right here, I think.
There is a big thing. So this is why we think it's really great to have that spreadsheet beforehand, because there are hundreds of agents and you're going to come across agents at different points, different times of day, all of that. So if you have this spreadsheet where you can just go drop their name, it's going to help.
Yeah.
But if you come across an agent on Twitter, Publishers Marketplace, conference, anything of the sort, we have 7 quick tips to know whether they might be an agent you want to query. And they should probably check off most of these.
Can I start? Because I think I want to switch your order around.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I would actually start with agency. I think it's the most basic thing. So as you're on Twitter and for the first time getting to know agents, just seeing them talk, things like that, instead of always paying attention to just the agent, pay attention to which agency they work for. So you can start making your list by just picking the top agencies, or not even the top, but the top agencies that appeal to you,
Right.
because of some connection you've made through social media or otherwise. And that's a great starting point because it sort of breaks it down in a bigger way before you have to get specific to the agent. So for example, you might be on Twitter and you might be seeing Naomi's tweets and think, wow, I love what they say. I don't know if they represent what I represent. I'm unsure. You don't have to do that research yet. Just
Right.
pop in BookEnds and say, that's an agency I'm going to look into, and it's time for me to start looking at agents.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
closely. Okay,
Yeah.
then
Yeah, so the next one would be, as you know, once you go to the agent's page, the agency's website, you're looking at all the different agents. Who represents your genre?
Yeah.
That's the great way to just weed out the ones that are not a fit for you. It's the easiest way to do it, and probably the quickest way to get rid of all the fluff, right? So
Yeah.
once you're on the agency's page, who represents picture books, for instance? And then you can write all of those agents down.
yeah, and if nobody at that agency represents picture books, then you just take them off their list. Or
Yes, however,
I would sort them.
I was
on
just
their
gonna say, I
table.
disagree. I would put them, if it's a spreadsheet, put them on a second list of just agencies to watch. If it's
Yeah.
an Airtable, which we love, sort it and put agencies to watch.
Yeah.
Because you never know, right? Like we just added a couple team members to our team representing different things than some of us might. So you never know who's gonna crop up at an agency, and it's good to have their name in your field of whatever.
Yep.
So that is probably the second thing to consider. The third thing to consider is that agent's interest. So now that you know that they're interested in your genre, would your book appeal to them on a more specific basis? So are they
Yeah,
really?
so once you get into the agency and the genre, then you can start sorting through the agents on that website or wherever you're finding them and sort of saying, okay, now which ones fit, which specific agents
Right.
fit what I'm interested in. And I would make multiple lines. So for
Yep.
BookEnds, I would, if I'm writing a picture book, I would put down 3 lines at BookEnds for every agent that does picture books at BookEnds. And then I can look into, okay, is there one that's most specifically geared towards me
Right. I agree.
with their interests? Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. So the next one is reputation. And I'm putting this one first because then I think the next few things will tie into that. So it's good to have that one first. So reputation, and this could be a number of things. So what I think we mean here is just, what do you know about that agent, right? Do they sound like a good agent to work with? Do you know any of their clients, and do their clients like that agent? How do they put themselves out on social media, right? So all of those things, what do you know about them? Do you like what you know about them? Does it seem venerable?
Yeah, and I think this could even just be personal tidbits. I want to acknowledge that you may not know a lot about their reputation, and that's okay. You don't have to dig deep to find every dirty secret about these people. You don't have to overcomplicate this, but it could be a tidbit like they tweeted, oh, I just found out Jessica's from Minnesota and my book's set in Minnesota. I'm going to mark that down as a little tidbit that might help me query in the future.
Yeah, I like that. So as you get more specific into that, though, as you're uncovering more about this agent, you might learn about their clients. Who do they represent? Do they represent people that you would like to, your book to be similar to, right? Are they clients that you admire? Are they people in your genre that you think are doing the kind of book that you want to do? Always great to know who that agent represents. And it's also really useful down the line, should that agent make an offer of representation, if you want to speak to some of their clients, it would be great to know who those clients are.
Yeah, and that can be found often on the agency's website. I think actually it can be more easily found through Publishers Marketplace. There, you can certainly get a subscription. I do believe they have a free, smaller version of their deal newsletter. They used to, that you could get that would give you some insight into that. And Query Tracker often gives that information as well. So there's a lot of places you can find that even outside of the agent's website about their clients.
Yeah, and if you're on Publishers Marketplace or in Kidlit, if you get that Publishers Weekly, twice weekly newsletter, you'll learn more about that agent's sales, which can also help you learn about their clients, right? Because they're representing these deals. So sales are a great way to know that that agent is doing their job. They're selling the books to the places that books are sold to and that you would want your book sold to. And I think it's really crucial that you're looking for an agent whose sales history is probably in line with where you want to see yourself going.
Yeah, and let me say that there is a caveat to this.
Yes.
Not all sales get posted. Not all sales get posted in a timely manner for a number of reasons. BookEnds has probably an entire sheet of paper with a full list of deals that we have not yet posted. Sometimes the publisher wants to hold off. Sometimes we're waiting for a final title. Sometimes we're waiting in a picture book situation for an illustrator to be signed. There's just a number of reasons why a deal might not be posted. I would also say that if you're looking at a newer agent, they may not have the sales, but does the agency seem to be selling to the houses that you want to be published with? Because that'll make a huge difference too. Do they have the contacts? Right. Does that new agent have access to the contacts? So that's a way to look at sales in sort of a bigger picture way.
Yeah, for sure. And then our last little bucket on here, and this is one that I do want to preface by saying you will not always have this, but a personal connection. Yeah. Whether it's, people who query Jessica and I often reference the YouTube, that can be a personal connection. But if you don't watch our YouTube and you don't know much else about us besides one of the other, if they don't watch our YouTube, they're not gonna see this. It's an example. It's an example. Can we move on?
Probably not. I can't let this one go.
If you don't have a personal connection, such as watching our YouTube, you might not be able to include that in your query letter. So, okay.
Sorry. You might not be able to query, but that's okay. You don't have to have a personal connection.
Pretty much. Let's move on. So once you have all of these agents in your query spreadsheet, the next step for you to do, at least in my eyes, is organize that, right? So if you have 4 agents at BookEnds, you can only query one at a time. So who would be your top pick? You're really creating what we call rounds. You're creating your first round of submissions. How many agents are going to be in that first round? And by that, I mean, what's doable for you? How many can you actually send out and manage, right? Everybody has different circumstances around their querying. But also, if an offer were to come in, who do you want to have that book, right? Who do you want to be reading that so that you can go to them and let them know? And then who would be next? So as person 1 passes at BookEnds, maybe we would go to a second person at BookEnds. So that's crafting your, what we call rounds, crafting your tier of who would see your query first. And by doing that, you have your plan set up. Doesn't mean it can't change. Doesn't mean you can't swap someone out if you see a new tidbit on MSWL or anything like that. But you have that general plan that takes all the think work out of it. If Jessica passes, I'm going to go query James. We've got that sort of settled for you. And by doing that, again, it just makes this feel a lot more like a machine and less like scrambling every time you get a rejection because you have to get more out there.
Yeah, it gives you a sense of control, which I think is really important in this whole process because it can very easily feel like you don't have any sense of control.
Yeah, because you're waiting for people, you're getting passes that you can't control what other people respond to. So this spreadsheet is actually all about control. It's all about having an organized system that sets you up for success in finding an agent. And it's a great tool to have if you end up querying a second book. If you're in a critique group where you have a bunch of friends doing the same process, I often say that that's one of the best parts about a critique group, is that you can share that information, sort of the same way BookEnds will share editor information.
Yeah, totally.
Who has a relationship or has a connection with an agent that they might be able to share to you that you never thought about. So once you have this set, it's your own little hub to entering the publishing ecosystem. I believe that's it, right?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
good
thank you
luck.
thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we hope to see you back here next time.
Bye.